Hi, I'm Colleen, and here are all the books I read in December. Before we get into the wrap up, I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of this channel. So if you are uninterested in that, you can jump ahead. I'll put chapters and you can just hear me talk about all the books I read this month. Now, if you stayed, the future of this channel sounds very grim. I'm not quitting YouTube, nothing's happening, but I have noticed something very much in the last couple weeks of my life, and that is that my life is extremely unpredictable. So you were getting your December wrap up quite late. I really wanted it to come out the first week of January, ideally in like the first 3 days of January, but it didn't happen. The day I was supposed to film, my kids were still home from school. My husband didn't have work. I was totally ready to film one last video in my bedroom before I got my common space back for a couple hours a day. And I woke up with a fever and the stomach flu. Me, not my kids, me. I was patient zero. Thankfully, only one of my kids also got it. It wasn't one of those bugs that like ripped through our entire family, thankfully. But it did kill 48 hours of my life in which I couldn't get any filming done. And then I had to wait several days, that is today, until I could actually film. So as we go into the new year, I would love to say that I can predictably film at least once a week, predictably edit, predictably post. But in the first half of this school year, I did not have a single week in which all of my children were healthy every single day. And that's just the nature of having 4 children under the age of 10 who have been, either homeschooled or masked for 2 years. It's just going to happen. We're going to get a lot of bugs. But my filming definitely takes a hit because while I can do my writing work when my kids are homesick, filming in a quiet house is very difficult to do when there are children coughing in or vomiting. I am still going to try to put out 1 to 2 videos a week. That's my goal. 1 video on Wednesday is usually my goal, and then a bonus video on Sunday is my other goal. But I don't know how predictable I'll be in terms of those actual days of those videos coming out. And the thing about YouTube is YouTube really, really likes consistency in terms of the algorithm. It really likes if you post every day. Or not every day. Well, I'm sure they love it if you post every day. But if you post on the same day every week, that's very helpful. And I don't know if that's going to happen. So this is a really long explanation to say, if you really enjoy my videos and really want to keep track of them, turn on your notifications so you know when I post, because I don't know if I'm going to show up on your homepage. If not, it's fine. You don't have to do that. Hopefully I'll come across. And I also slightly feel like because I'm putting this out into the universe, that now my kids are going to be super healthy and I'm going to be able to post on schedule 100%. I also have to be a good author right now and let you know that my new short novelette, it's not really a short story and it's not a novella, The Forest Witch, is available on Amazon. And it is a quick under-hour romance read about a witch warlock couple who are fated mates meeting each other and having a very rocky start. And it is in Kindle Unlimited if you are a subscriber to that service. If not, you can also wait probably about a week-ish and I'll have my newsletter set up and it will be a freebie with my newsletter. If you want to wait for that, I completely understand. On to the wrap up. So I read a lot in December and I needed to read 11 books in December to have read 100 books in 2022. So I read 10 books. So I read 99 books in 2022. And I felt good about reading 10 books in December because very honestly, I could have jammed 1 more book in, especially that week between Christmas and New Year's when I finally didn't have anything going on. But I also really enjoyed just relaxing. So let's get to the reviews. Also, my child dropped a piece of a game down our heat vent, like our air vent. And so every once in a while you might hear a little like shaking noise. And that's because the heat turned on. It's vibrating back and forth and we can't reach it. And I don't really want to take apart our vent system to get this. So I'm hoping it just shifts at some point. Okay, books. I organized these in the order I read them, not by genre, because I read kind of a mishmash of a lot of different genres. So we're just going to start with the first book I finished in December, and it was The Wilder Women by Ruth Emmy Lang. I would rate this as like a solid read. So this is magical realism. I got it from Book of the Month. It's about a pair of sisters, Finn, who who's the younger sister, and Zadie, who's the older sister. 5 years earlier, their mom, whose name is Nora, disappeared, like flat out disappeared. And Zadie was already 18. I can't remember if she was like 18 or 19, but Finn was like 11, 12 in middle school. And so she got put into the foster care system. And Zadie did try to get custody of her and failed. So now Finn has turned 18. She's graduated from high school, and the two of them are supposed to go on vacation to like the beach together. And when Zadie shows up to take her on vacation, Finn lets her know that they're actually going to go look for their mom. Now, they both have weird magical realism gifts. So Finn can like feel memories. She can like walk into memories. She touches stuff. She goes places, and just memories of other people flash into her brain. Zadie is a psychic who doesn't use her powers. This book, the first half, takes place in like the American Southwest. And it's like very, very desert vibes. Very, very like so many stars in the sky, people living in the desert who maybe all have different sorts of gifts. And then the second half takes place in the Pacific Northwest. So you get more of like that sort of feel. This was a very slow read. This is more like a meandering character study than any sort of fast-paced plot. That isn't to say I didn't enjoy it, because I thought it was well written. I thought it was interesting. I thought the characters and the settings were all very interesting. I thought the end was very odd, but I think magical realism books can really get away with odd stuff that maybe like even like straightforward fantasy can't get away with, and definitely fiction can't. Magical realism is kind of like that strange in between. So I felt like the ending worked. It was one of those books that I enjoyed reading, but it was never really like calling me to pick it up. Okay, let's move on. The next book I read was an ARC, and it was The Rogue's Rules for Seduction by Eva Lee. There's the beautiful cover. This is the third book in a series, but I hadn't read the first two, and it was kind of fine. I mean, you meet the previous couples, but in romance novels, I feel like you can kind of read them out of order. And I loved it. It was fantastic. This book was great. Now, our two main characters are Willa and Dom, and they are previously engaged people. So Dom was supposed to marry Willa and sort of like left her at the altar with the help of her two brothers who are his best friends. Years later now, her brothers are both married. They were the stars of the first two books in this series. And they sort of finagle a way for them and their wives, plus Willa and Dom, to all be sort of stuck on this island for this like debaucherous party thrown by a very fun host. They both get very angry when they show up, obviously, but they're stuck there. There's like a supply boat that comes every once in a while, but there's no way to get off the island. They're stuck on the island together. The last book I read where people were stuck on the island, everyone started dying because it was a thriller, but this is not like that. What I liked most about this book is how Eva Lee wrote Willa's like deep hatred hurt towards Dom. Because she doesn't just hate him, it's that he hurt her so badly. She was in love with him. But they also find out through this time together that they didn't know each other very well when they were engaged. They were super attracted to each other, and they knew surface level stuff, but they didn't like know each other's deep, dark secrets. And I really like watching their relationship sort of grow, since they did know each other in a more like immature state of themselves. This book also has one of my favorite micro tropes, which is Cabin in the Woods. Where they're in a cabin in the woods by themselves for a little while. It was really fun. I don't really like enemies to lovers, but I really liked this one. And it really solidified that I think Eva Lee is a fantastic Regency romance writer, and I'm definitely going to pick up more of her stuff. Next up, I have The Cloisters by Katie Hayes. And this is an elusive, put it in my veins, 5-star read for me. Okay. Do you like dark academia? Read this book. I can't believe this book hasn't been more like all over BookTube and Instagram, though I did see it at Target yesterday. I think it was at Target. A couple days ago I was at Target, and I was so excited for Katie Hayes because she wrote a very good book. Our main character is Anne. She's just arrived in New York City after growing up in a small town in Washington State and going to a liberal arts college in her same small town. Her father has recently died. Her mom's a mess. She wants to get the hell out of Washington. She's very smart, and I can't remember exactly now, but I think she has her master's. No, she doesn't have her master's yet because she wants to apply to master's programs, but she did her undergraduate in late medieval art, early Renaissance art, which is kind of like a weird time period apparently for art studies majors. I have no idea. I never took an art history class, and it's a true regret of mine. She has an internship at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. When she shows up, they tell her that the person who was supposed to mentor her got like a grant to go to somewhere in Europe, I think Germany, and they don't have a place for her anymore. And they're kind of like, sorry, we can pay for you to fly back home. And she's like, I don't want to go back home. I rented a studio apartment in New York. This is supposed to be like me starting over. She has no interest in any past of her life. Okay. So that's important because she's super isolated. She has no friends from home. She has a terrible relationship with her mom, and she's in a new city. This man just happens to walk in. He says he works at the Cloisters, which is a museum in New York City I didn't know about, and I can't believe because after reading this, like I have to visit this museum. So now I have to go back to New York City at some point. His name's Patrick, and he's like, oh, Anne, you'd be perfect for me this summer at the Cloisters. I'll take her. What comes next is this like great murder mystery, dark academia, tarot-themed story that I absolutely loved. If you like sort of like art history mystery stuff, if you like really like weird relationship stuff, this has so much. I'm a huge tarot fan. Like I love tarot cards. I think they're very fun, very cool, very beautiful. And this is about trying to figure out when the first deck of tarot cards existed. So I loved that. This book also had a fantastic ending. So I really liked how the book ended. There was one part that I did not see coming at all because I don't want to give anything away. I'm just going to say I didn't see anything coming at all. And lastly, as you might know if you watch this channel, I have a Master's of Library and Information Science, which you can focus on museum studies, but I didn't because jobs at museum libraries are few and far between. So I focused on youth services, but the place I went to school will let you audit classes in any field in case you want to change what field you're in. And I did spend like 48 hours just diving into all the like history of the printed book, early books and manuscripts, conservation classes that I could audit, and then remembered that I have 4 children and I'm an author. I don't have time. I don't have time to do this, but maybe I will soon. The Cloisters, 5 stars, read it. My next read, I got an ARC for, and it was Secret Alaskan Hideaway by Karen Whiddon. This book was okay, borderline not for me. Here's the thing about this book. So I wrote a very normal Goodreads read to what I would say was a 2-star book for me personally. I finished it. It was a fast read, but it was definitely not something I like very much enjoyed while reading. So I wrote a review about that, how I thought 50 pages could have been cut out. I didn't really like the main characters very much. The book felt like it was set in 2006. Like just set the book in 2006. That's something that bothers me is like if you want there to be like no communication, no cell phones, no internet, you can't get a hold of anyone, you're isolated, then you can set a book in the early 2000s and it'll still feel relatively modern and it will make more sense. So that was a really big thing that bothered me about the book. Also, I haven't even told you guys what this book is about. I'm just telling you everything that I didn't like about it. But there's also a huge thing in this book where, I don't know, at least once every chapter, they talk about everyone owning guns, which is fine. This book takes place in rural Alaska. I understand that if you live in rural Alaska, you have to own a gun because of safety reasons with the wildlife. But I don't necessarily need to want to read a book about it. So I put that in my review as well. And I ended the review by saying, this book wasn't for me, but I'm sure it's for a lot of people. And I got a really, really mean, rude response, not from the author, from a woman who's a Goodreads librarian, which I don't really even understand what that means, other than I think you're supposed to like sort of be in charge of making sure like reviews are unbiased, which basically saying I was completely wrong for disliking the review, telling me everything that was wrong with my commentary. And honestly, all that did is make me hate the book more because I really didn't like it to begin with. And then to have someone just sort of be like, you should like it, and this is all the things wrong with it. People are allowed to not like books. Trust me, I'm an author. I've gotten scathing reviews on Goodreads of people who have hated my books, and that's fine. Not everyone's going to like everything you write. I didn't say it was poorly written, and I didn't say that I thought it shouldn't be published. I just said I didn't like it. So, yeah. So it's a romantic suspense that takes place in rural Alaska about a woman who moves there to be the town doctor and finds a man who's gotten in a car accident and has amnesia. That's what it's about. I didn't like it. Next, I reread a book which was nice. And it was Walking in a Witchy Wonderland by Julia Cross. Usually every December I reread My True Love Gave to Me, which is a collection of YA young adult like rom-com-y stories. But last year when I read it, I felt like I had read it too many times and it wasn't like grabbing me like it used to. But I read this one last year and decided to reread it this year. I really liked it again, but I did notice upon this reading that it's really not Christmassy. It's more just like vague mentions of like New Year's and Christmas are happening at the same time. But I still really like it. It's still 5 stars, but it's not like a hard holiday read. Okay, so my next book was a thriller, and it was A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This was Book of the Month lets you, once you've been a member for a year, pick one of the Books of the Year finalists for free. And this is the one that I picked. I hadn't read any of the Book of the Month finalists this year, which I thought was kind of crazy. But I thought I wanted to read a thriller. The one that won was Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And while I like her, I just really wasn't in the mood for that kind of book. So I picked this one. And it didn't disappoint. I really liked it a lot. So the premise is that our main character is Chloe, and she is a therapist, and she's living in Baton Rouge. And 20 years earlier, she had been the person who gave the police evidence to put her father away for being a serial killer. So she has a lot of issues because of that, obviously. So it's been 20 years. She's engaged to this guy she really likes. Her mom is in like a nursing home. Her mom had kind of a mental breakdown after her dad was sentenced to life. He's still in jail. And she has kind of a stressed relationship with her brother, but obviously they both have a lot of issues. And similar crimes start to happen. At the same time, this reporter has shown up because it's almost the 20th anniversary and he wants to write an article about her dad. And Chloe starts to feel like she's reliving everything and that there might be a copycat. I really like thrillers that have 2 timelines, and this one you do get a lot of Chloe when she's 12, which is when her father was arrested, and all these murders in her small town were taking place. So I really liked that. I also thought the twist was good, but there was like a minor twist first that I thought was better. So there's the big twist, and then there's a minor twist, and I was like, oh, when the minor twist happened, I was like, I actually really like that, because I did that one. Blindsided me. The big twist, there's like 4 different big twists you think could happen, and it was one of the ones I thought of. But it was a great first Stacey Willingham book for me. I know she had another one that just came out, but I'm totally blanking on which one it is. So I'll put it right here. And yeah, I enjoyed it. It was great. The next book I read was a Kindle read, and it was The Orc King by Zoe Ashwood, and there's the cover. And I really liked, Zoe Ashwood had like a Shifter series that I read maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, and I really liked it, but then I sort of fell off reading her stuff because she started doing more like alien-ish stuff, which I'm not as into. But I subscribed to her newsletter, so I kept getting stuff about her new books. And finally I was like, I want to read that Orc series. I think I'd like it. And I did. I thought it was like solid read, borderline great, monster, medieval, cozy at the same time romance. It's not very dark. So if you're looking for a monster romance that doesn't have like any dark themes, this is a good one. It's about Dawn, who has been like bought from a market by some orcs, and she's freaking out, obviously. And when they take her to the camp, all the orcs are like smelling her to figure out if she's anyone's mate. And the king is like, oh, she's mine. And so the story goes from there about their relationship, but it's definitely not like at all rapey, if that makes sense. It's like very consensual, good king who's gonna like leave her alone until she's ready. I liked it. It was very fun. I read it extremely fast. I'll probably read more in the series. My next read is very, very tiny. It's Galatea, I think is how you say it, by Madeline Miller. And I've been wanting to buy this for a really long time, but like having a hard time justifying it because it's $12 and it's how many pages? 50 pages. But I love Madeline Miller. And then I thought to myself, I'm in charge of the gift buying in my family. This would be a great thing to put under the tree for myself. So I did. And I really enjoyed it. Literally on December 26th, put a fire in the fireplace, dragged one of my chairs right in front of it, read it in 30 minutes probably, but it's beautiful. If you're one of those people who just really likes Madeline Miller or mythology retellings, this is the retelling of Pygmalion, I think his name is. Yes, Pygmalion. And the woman he carves from stone, who then comes alive, and it's the point of view of the woman who's been carved of stone and then comes alive. And it's fantastic. It's got all the Circe, Song of Achilles, heartbreaking vibes you could want. I read a nonfiction book next, but you're going to laugh when you see what it is. I read Color Your Style, How to Wear Your True Colors by David Zyla. And I thought this book was great, but you have to kind of stick with me on it. I've recently really gotten into like color theory and like what colors make you look better. And it's probably because I'm turning 40 and I'm suddenly like into stuff like that. Like what colors are going to make me look better? What cuts are going to look better for my body? Because I'm not, in my 20s anymore, nor am I constantly pregnant and not caring about what I look like. So this book I really liked. And I read a review on Goodreads that was fantastic. And I'm going to paraphrase. And it said basically that reading this book is like someone had a dream about a new color theory. And then they woke up and they tried to tell you everything they dreamed about. And that's kind of what it is. So it's basically like how different colors in your body are your best colors to wear. So like all the different colors within your eye. And like when your ears turn red when you get cold, or pink, or whatever color they turn, that color. Every shade in your hair. How all these different colors make you look better when you wear them, and they make you feel different things. So there's like your essence color, which comes from your skin, your romantic color, which comes from your blush, your power color, which comes from your eyes, your neutral colors come from your hair. Like it was really interesting. But then they also do your color seasons. So like, if you're like a spring, summer, autumn, or winter. And then in there, he comes up with like archetypes. And it is kind of funny because like I flipped through the autumn ones because I'm in autumn. And I was like, I don't think any of these are going to be for me. But then when I was reading it, there is one called The Sexy Librarian. I was like, oh, that actually probably is sort of me because I am a librarian, love books. And I do like to dress not like sexy, but like slightly romantic. Not today. But I was like, that actually is probably me. So this is like really fun. The only downside is there are no color swatches. So it'll say like, is your best color ivory or cream or whatever? And I don't know what those colors look like. So he does recommend buying one of those boxes of paint swatches that you can get that are on like the big dial. I don't have one. My parents have one. I might steal it next time I'm over there. But it was super fun. If you like color theory, pick it up. All right, we've got one more. And it's The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Put this in my veins. Good God, people. Why did no one tell me that this book was so good? I know people did. People said it was really good. But I didn't think I was going to like it that much. I definitely thought I was going to like Daisy Jones and the Six better. And this book, like the first 100 pages, I wasn't that invested. And then I fell so hard invested. I think I finished this on New Year's Eve. And I was totally like, this is going to be my first book of 2023. I'm going to finish this like on the 2nd. I was on page like maybe 120 in the morning on New Year's Eve. And I spent all of New Year's Eve reading it and then crying really, really hard, which was fine because my New Year's Eve plans were to get all my children in their pajamas at 5 p.m., have a big dinner, put on the Paris New Year's at like 8:30, I think we did it at. And then my husband and I lay on the couch until midnight when our cable went out at 12:06 and we went to bed. So I didn't have big plans. If you haven't read this book is about a woman's life told from the point of view of her 7 husbands, but it's not actually about that. It's like the story of a lifelong love that I had no idea this was going to be about. And I loved it so much that I can't even talk. Okay. With Taylor Jenkins Reid, I never thought she was an author I was going to like. She writes in time periods I'm usually not super interested in, and I'm not like a very, non-fantasy, non-romance, non-thriller reader. I do like contemporary fiction and historical fiction, but they're not like my 2 main reads. So I read Daisy Jones and the Six, and I really liked it, and then I was like, I'm just going to get Evelyn Hugo because it'll probably be a good, solid, fun read. Now I feel like I have to read everything she's ever written. Even though in my brain I think to myself, I don't think I'll like Malibu Rising and I don't think I'll like Carrie Soto is back. But maybe I will? I don't know. Either way, I'm so glad I read this. And this is why I don't do my best book of the year videos in the year and I wait till January because this is legit the last book I read in 2022. And it was definitely in the top 10 books I read in 2022, maybe even in the top 5. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Put it in my veins, people. And that's it. That was a pretty long wrap up for me. Mine are usually much shorter, but I had a lot to say. So it was a really good reading month. I had a lot of fun. I mean, there was one book I didn't like? That's pretty good. I feel like when you're reading 10 books, if you really like 90% of them, that's great. That's an A-, right? Yeah, fantastic. What was the best book you read in December? Did you have something like me where like one of the last books you read was one of the best books you read all year? If so, I hope you did. I also always feel bad for the books I read in January because by the time I get to December, I very rarely have many books from January that are still like pressing on me. So much like best book of the year material. If you are still sticking around, thank you for hanging out and watching. Drop me a evergreen tree with no Christmas ornaments on it emoji in the comments because my Christmas decorations are down and I'm very happy about it. I'm all for the Christmas cheer, but the second January starts, get it out of here. Bring me the new year. I like a clean slate in January. My only decor are my winter birds because they're not Christmas specific. I hope you're having a great day. And as always, I hope you're in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book. See you soon.